said this during the election. Media companies would love a Trump presidency because they knew it was going to be the realest reality TV having a fake billionaire who was in the Oval Office, a reality TV star, be president, because it would be something nuts every day.
Yeah, I mean, and Les Moonves during the campaign, during a shareholders call, actually admitted it. He said Donald Trump may be bad for America, but he's great for CBS. And that's totally true, and it's completely reflected in their coverage today. Almost all of it is sort of continuing this larger storyline where Trump is basically, they try to portray him as a villain. That's what they want to do. It's a storyline. He is a villain. And it's about creating that people they hire even fit certain roles. So the best example of you were referencing CNN before, is they actually created a job description, not for a conservative commentator or somebody to advocate for one idea over another, but literally the job description is to be a pro-Trump person. You only have to defend the president. That is
and you have to do it a certain way. I know for a fact that CNN producers and bookers told Michael Singleton that one of the reasons they were not booking him more because he wasn't like Paris Denard. Robert Pinion, another conservative. They felt that he was too even-keeled. They wanted somebody who was going to be a vigorous defender of Donald Trump. Here were two black men who are conservatives, who are Republicans, who they felt, CNN felt, you're not sufficiently pro-Trump, so we're not going to book you.
Right, and instead they want people like Jeffrey Lord, right, who would only, it doesn't matter what was said, what was done, you could deny reality in order to fill the storyline. That there's a lot of real news there. And I've always maintained that, you know, it's an excuse to say, well, you know, it's interesting, this is what people want to pay attention to. And I just think that's a bunch of nonsense, because if you look at the way that they treat hurricanes, right, the only thing that ever seems to get more attention than Donald Trump is a hurricane. And there's no real reason to cover a guy standing on a beach except that they've built the drama around it. And they could make that kind of intensity around any story that they really wanted. You know, a glacier falling off the side of the Arctic, you could make interesting if they wanted to. But right now,
yes, you can make poverty interesting. You can actually make
that's exactly right.
You can actually make what's happening in terms of all these people who actually thought Donald Trump was going to save their cities, like the carrier workers. I'm just saying. But see, but the other thing to me is also this notion of people who don't understand. I mean, look how long it took the media to say Trump lies. Okay, I was probably one of the first to actually say, "Well, not deep lie is it's not a lie because in order for me to call it a lie, I must know the intent of the person and what they were saying. And hell, if we know you ain't telling the truth, we call it a lie." And you had media companies who they would not say it. And finally, once I think he probably hit about 1,000 lies, because he's now past 4,000 lies. They finally went, hell, just call it a lie because ain't no sense in us. And we were calling Trump Lives Matter the week after the election.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think what's reflected there in that part of it is that what they haven't figured out, and this is across all journalism and news media, is that they haven't figured out how to deal with a bad faith individual, right? They know how to deal with people that are far on the ideologies one way or another. They know how to deal with false equivalencies, but they don't really know how to interact with somebody. About Trump, that's the entire Trump administration, right? Like, they don't know how to cover when sources that they typically would have previously relied on are actually stuff in bad faith to create a Trump that then respond to. That's the part that's still so troubling about it. It's not just the share of voice that Trump consumes in terms of the overall conversation. It's that they actually haven't quite figured out how to deal with bad faith individuals in their coverage.
Well, and I think that is because, frankly, the way the media played this game. Look, I spent 6 years at CNN, and I saw it up close and personal. They would say, well, what's your side? What's your side? Sometimes, okay, a fact doesn't have a side.
Right.
There's only one side.
That's true.
Was factual. And so if you tell me that we increased spending by $500 million, and I go check it, and I see it was increased by $150 million, that's a lie.
Yep.
And so we're out of time. Thank you very much. As opposed to be honest, part of the problem is you got a bunch of these anchors on these cable networks who are not well-versed people, who don't know facts, so therefore they can't do real-time fact checks when somebody lies in front of them because they've been, frankly, depending on a producer who you don't see hand them little blue cards, tell them what to ask on television.
Wow.
That's totally true, and I think what you were getting to too is this idea that they're so concerned about cries of liberal bias, that they're biased, that they do engage in false equivalencies. So a large part is they don't have the resources to do it, and I bet even if many of them did know something was a lie, they still wouldn't call it out, or if it wasn't true, they still wouldn't call it out because they're too afraid to be viewed as political one way or another. And the part that really concerns me is that's a working the ref strategy that the right wing started in the 90s, and now they're doing the same thing on the social media front, right? The way they're saying Facebook and Google are out there to get them, and that's the same that was deployed to do the same thing on social media. That is the media landscape. So.
Let me ask you a question, because in that same, I think it was Ted Koppel article that I read, he talked about how the media is getting played by Donald Trump, how he is such a news story every day that he mandates that the media, whether you're left or right, cover him, and then they become the enemy, and he criticizes them in this kind of self-perpetuating circle. Can you talk about that and whether you've seen that article or not?
I have seen it, and I can definitely speak to that personally. I mean, one thing about Trump, so in 2012, well before he ran for president, I had done a campaign against him to get him fired from Macy's and had this big petition and all these events, and he tried to sue me, and it was this long, protracted media battle. And one thing I learned at that time that he'll call these reporters, he'll call producers. At that point, part of it is that he in those interactions, there's almost an addiction to it. Aside from the fact that it's good, it's great for the brand of reporter these days or a member of the media. It's not so much that you're writing for the outlet you are, but your social media account is movable.
Right.
When you leave that job, that is your currency. And so the idea that you get access to him, this whiff of it, it can be very appealing. There's an irresistible temptation to be a part of the larger story.
But that's how he became president.
That's
because
exactly
the reality,
right.
And again, I can tell you right, I said it yesterday when I was at CNN. I told Stephanie Katubi, who was the booker of CNN, why in the hell do y'all keep booking and Wolf keeps going to interview Donald Trump? They love that. That's the reality. Didi, your thoughts on this? Do you believe that the media falls for every Donald Trump tweet, falls for every single sideshow because, frankly, they are enjoying the amount of money that they're making from the circus every day?
Anybody's going to enjoy. I don't think that I'm going to agree. I don't agree with everything just because he's the president or just because you're a conservative. That doesn't make sense to me. And if you're wrong, whether the tweet is or not, or whatever, that's my mother calling me, no, I wouldn't agree with it. And yes, the media, they're loving it because he's always tweeting. I think that he should put his phone down sometimes. He needs a timeout. Put the phone down. You don't need to tweet every single day.
Well, especially when you don't even start work till 1 p.m. because you're watching television for the first 5 hours of the day. Greg, go ahead.
Let me ask, in terms of media matters, it's very interesting because a couple of things. Broadcast media, like we saw yesterday, April Ryan and Aisha Rasco, who led out, shout out Howard University, one of my former students.
It's you?
Yeah, you know.
You
brother.
know?
You know, brother. but they took on Sarah Huckabee. So my first question would be, what is the responsibility of the so-called mainstream media, meaning cable, broadcast television? And the second question is in terms of media mattering. Roland Martin, the internet.
And that's been the biggest thing inside this role was actually, 1 out of every 2 Americans uses their social media feed as their primary source of news. And when you think about social media feed, it's digital programs too. I mean, that is the lens through which they see the world. That is the ball game. And so a lot of what we're talking about is legacy media, and that's not to dismiss it, but that is the future really is social media, and a large part of it is why Trump is also so powerful these days, at least in terms of his ability to shape the stories.
But a couple of things. The mistake that they made yesterday in questioning Sarah Sanders, and that was a mistake. By tagging on Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, they gave Sarah Huckabee the out. That was a mistake. The reality is this here. See, the way I operate is if I know that you're going to somehow switch the story, I'm not going to let you switch. They ignored her question about the Central Park 5 because they added the first sister who asked the question, she mentioned Hillary Clinton. April added Bill Clinton. That's what Sarah Huckabee Sanders jumped on. So that gave her the out. So that also, when I see these time by tagging on something else, it's an absolute issue. And so that's the one mistake they also do. And it's also interesting when you talk about that to these other outlets. It's very simple. It's interesting. All of these media writers, we've been on the air now 1 month. 8.24 million views the first month. Not one single media writer has done a story on us creating an independent news show.
That's right.
Not one. And because and I saw it, we had TV1. They would rarely write about us at TV1 because even the media writers want to protect legacy media.
That's right, and that's ultimately means it's why they seem to. And then that's why they don't understand why part of the story they're telling when the results come in the election. They say, well, how the hell did that happen? Well, it's because you're not paying attention. You're only looking at a small, narrow perspective that really isn't the whole ballgame.
That's why I appreciate the New York Times for they having a story on the black women who are working for votes in the South. Thank you for finally realizing that.